Hey, welcome back Binder and Unreal Adventure fans. It's another day here at the IHPA R&D shop. Going to be a little bit different episode this time, although we're going to be talking about White Scout behind me and what progress we made the last couple weeks. And Zaed's going to make an appearance too. We're going to talk about what happened to the old Monstera at Easter Jeep Safari for that week. She's a little banged up. And then we're going to talk about a direction change with Cheap Scout. Although we're still trying to keep it cheap, at least according to our wallet, we're hoping there's a change of direction on that project requiring some different products to come in, and we're going to talk about that as well. All right, so as you can see, the Monstera sustained some damage on a couple rollovers last week. Trying to keep a vehicle with this width axles, it was just hard to keep up. I remember back in the day with my White Scout, being just 60 inches wide and wheeling that thing, man, every time you'd lean, it just like, it feel like it was going to go over, and it just makes it harder to follow guys with full widths, which are much more stable. That's one of the reasons why we're also going to be switching Cheap Scout over to some full widths that we're being given. And then the other thing on cage, so I mentioned some triangulation. Was needing it on my cage on White Scout, and I was being a little bit lazy about it before leaving for EJS. I was just getting kind of tired. I'm like, man, I need to add some, but I don't know, I need to move on, Well, after seeing what happened with this cage, which on the passenger side actually got kind of smushed down, we were able to go to Grandpa's garage, and with help from Chris Durham, the Chuck Norris of Off-Road, he helped us straighten out the roll cage, and we welded it up with some other guys, like Caleb was there and from UA, and he helped do some welding, and it was great, man. Just together we got the cage straightened back out. But it was a great lesson at EJS about what we need to do to both of our rigs to make them a little bit better wheelers and a little bit safer wheelers. So with that in mind, we're going to head inside, and then Zaed's going to get you all caught up on what the current plan is today for Cheap Scout.
All right, so first things first, this is the original 258 out of the Scout. We actually got this thing running, surprisingly enough, and we drove it down the hill. It ran okay, but I'm not really going to trust an engine that's been sitting for who knows how long. So threw it on the stand, took it apart, found out that the head was kind of worn out. The valves had a lot of expansion, and the valve seats weren't seating very well. So had the cylinder head sent out by our local machine shop. So that's back with new valves, new seats, obviously valve seals, springs, etc. And inside the engine, the short block itself, we found it to be 60 over, so who knows how many times this thing has been rebuilt. It has quite the piston ring ledge in there, so I imagine this thing has a few 100,000 miles on it. We are running a custom Schneider camshaft out of a 4.0 high output Jeep Cherokees essentially. And then I went ahead and mounted up a Saginaw style power steering pump on this engine, so we can obviously run power steering. Evidently, power steering on a 258 is rather rare, and people want a lot of money for a bracket for a 258 with power steering. So instead of spending $400, since that seems kind of excessive for this build, I went ahead and spent about 8 hours and just kind of made a bracket out of some 3/8 strap and got it all mounted up there kind of as high as I could without hitting the thermostat housing and whatnot. Then I just installed a used Power Master alternator that I found on the shelf, and then we're running this intake manifold. My cousin Royce sent me this. It's off of like a later, I think a CJ7. So as you can see, it has 2 barrels, it's aluminum, and this is going to bolt directly to our Holley Sniper that Holley graciously sent us for this build. So after it's all said and done, Royce also sent us a split header for this thing, a used one off one of his old Scouts. So we're going to have some header action, a little bit lighter of an intake manifold with 2 barrels, one more than the original. So this thing should look pretty bling once we get it all bolted up, but we're just waiting on a couple components of this engine to wrap it up. Once we get those parts wrapped up, I can kind of get the flywheel put on, put the clutch we had rebuilt back on this thing, and then kind of finish adapting this contraption, and we'll move on to that here shortly. All right, so right here we have a T19 4-speed transmission, which is actually native to a Scout. However, this one has a couple extra things. There are wide ratio Ford T19 guts inside of this. It's seen better days, however, a little bit of wire wheel action and some cheap rebuild parts and random bearings that we found. We cobbled this thing together, and then on the back of this, as you can see, it's a round bolt pattern with a 23 spline output shaft. So this is going to make us adapt our T19 wide ratio, which is I believe a 6.32 first gear, to the White Scout old transfer case that I finished rebuilding, and that has 4-to-1 gears. So with the 6.32 first gear and then the 4-to-1 low gear of that unit with the 32 spline output shaft, and it's already twin sticked. And to get this transmission adapted to this 258, there weren't too many of them out there, but they actually had 4-speed 258s, and luckily we had a couple bell housings in our pile of bell housings. So we should be able to adapt this to this engine without a problem. And then we sent the flywheel to our local machine shop, the same place we had the cylinder head rebuilt. They surfaced the flywheel, and then we sent the OEM clutch out to our clutch shop down in Sacramento. And from what I'm seeing with this whole Scout, it was probably parked because the clutch was slipping, because when I drove it, it kind of acted like a CVT, to where the more throttle you gave it, the more it moved. Otherwise it would idle in gear. Now moving on to the Scout itself, as you can see, it's been torn down quite a bit since you last saw it. So this leaves a foundation, and this is where we come into kind of the project switcheroo, which to start with, we're working with Barnes 4-wheel drive, and Barnes 4-wheel drive, we met up with Connor at Easter Jeep Safari, and he has graciously been willing to work with us on this build. So we're going to be using his bracketry and certain steering components to create our 3-link front suspension system on this Scout. And this is kind of foreign technology to us here at IH Parts America. We generally just deal with leaf springs. The plan is a front Dana 44 out of a Chevrolet pickup, I imagine. They're sitting in Corey's pasture. Haven't heard much about them, but supposedly they're good to go. So for the front, we're going to be running a 12-inch, 2-inch diameter coilover from Skyjacker with a 7/8 shaft. And we're going to be using, I believe, Barnes's 3-link in conjunction with that, and Barnes's shock towers, some CPT bump stops, and that's going to kind of conclude the front. That's a 12-inch travel. The rear, the plan is we're going to be using I believe a Chevy square body rear 4-inch lift spring with Barnes's outboard brackets and hangers to go with that, and then some Skyjacker Super Duty shocks to keep it kind of stiff in the back. And if the budget plays, we may do a cheap sway bar in the back, but as of now, that's not really the case. And as for the rear axle, we're doing, no one really runs these things, no one likes them, but there's a million of them out there. It's a GM 9.5-inch semi-float 14 bolt, or whatever you want to call it. That's going to be in the rear. And a big company that's working with us is Yukon Gear and Axle, so we're working with them. So we're going to be getting some 488 gears, some Grizzly lockers, some axle rebuild parts, and possibly some chrome ollie axle shafts to go with it. Just basic general four-wheeling upgrades to do to your axle. Obviously before UA, I don't want to be running stock axle shafts. Maybe those will be our spares, but for the sake of this event, it's a budget build, but at the same time you got to be well equipped for the event. So we're going to make sure the axles are at least, have a fighting chance of surviving the trip. Just got off the phone with US Radiator, so they're going to be working with us on a custom radiator for the 258, and we also just received some DNC Extreme frame caps, and they go underneath the frame towards the back section here, and that's going to be the location where the link bars mount. We're just going to strip it all down, cut all the brackets off, and then go from there. All right, here's the inside of the Scout. There's just no structural integrity in the inside of the Scout at all, so we're going to build a cage in the inside of this unit that's kind of like an exo but inside cage. We're going to tie the seat bases into that. Basically this is how we're going to leave it. I'm going to pop these seatbelt pieces off. We're going to get rid of this transmission and transfer case, and then we're going to put obviously the new setup in there here shortly. Maybe bust down this dash just slightly, get rid of these old gauges so we can run some random gauges that we find around here that are slightly more accurate than these original ones. And then probably install a used 1990s stereo inside so we can listen to music. And the plan is I'll probably rob some of the comm and radio setup for my other Scout, and we'll put it in this Scout for the trip, which should be plenty for the event. But otherwise, I'm going to get back to work on this Scout. There's plenty to do, obviously, as you can see. I'm going to hand it back over to Jeff so he can continue talking about his crazy project where all the money's going.
Okay, so when we last left, I was working on that roll cage, and then when we got back from EJS, first thing I did was add some more triangulation to it. I kind of wanted to throw the hard top back on and kind of build them like where they match the back window and stuff. But I decided after EJS, what is going to make the cage the strongest? And I felt just a boink boink making an old Y out of the whole setup, because it is mounted above the wheel well tub, would add the most sense to the cage and the most strength in case it actually needs to be used. Once I got that done, I moved on to the dash, got some dash bars in, filled in the little side panels, and I actually got the first dash panel made for it. It's all out of metal. Probably one day go back, make it out of aluminum, as this thing is getting kind of iron heavy. With that on, I'm going to have the custom dash from Holley Sniper to go with it, and that's going to fit on here. I still got to make some custom mounts for it, and a little bit more work to do. I'm trying to get as far as I can on everything on the build so I can get this body off to paint, because I'm getting nervous with just 4 months to go. But as I tackle those things, I'm going to kind of like finish the dash once the body is off, because I can actually have at this point the dash, the whole cage just sitting there, and kind of like just stand in front of it and build the dash out the way I want to, cut out all the holes for gauges, switches, and all that. So I'm as far along as I need to be on the dash right now. I'm really happy with where it's at and how it came out. Should give me plenty of room to put, you know, both a GMRS radio and a UHF race radio in there. Again, lots of switches, just a couple gauges, fuel pressure and air pressure. The rest is going to be on the Holley dash. Got the seats installed. Got these seats in from PRP while I was out at EJS. These things are awesome. Got our logo on it. Got the seat belts mounted in there as well, just using basic 3-points on this. Got the parking brake installed. Got a nice center console using an old ammo can. The ammo can I had bought was actually purchased for Hidious's project, but it was ended up being too big. Used a much smaller ammo can in Hidious. But this one fits perfect in White Scout. Gonna end up, it won't be green camo color by the time I'm done with it. I hope to actually put a little armrest pad on top. Parking brake handle is out of a JK. It's the exact same handle I used in Hidious, and mounted it here to the floor. A little cutout, got the cables coming through, and that works really good. I'm really stoked how that came out. Right above my spare tire, I'm going to keep my tent cot. And to keep the tent cot sort of wedged down, of course it'll be strapped in, is I put this WFO like cooler tray above it. And that kind of, like I said, I can keep lighter stuff up above. The little brackets are removable, so if I want to put the tray, say, in the back position, I want to put the back seat in, move the tray to the back, I can do that. Under the dash, I've got the quick wire wiring harness mounted. This is where I'm going to have the fuse panel. I felt that it was a good spot where I can easily access the fuses if need be. The rest of the wires are just going to spawn out from there, going front, back, underneath, every which direction. When I was at EJS, I bought one of these Rotopack 2-gallon gas cans. I didn't know what I was going to do there, so I saw them for sale, bought one, and it fits perfect right here in the corner. On the opposite corner, I ended up mounting a Harvester Hardware storage cabinet, medicine cabinet. So it's perfect. I can put about 5-6 quarts of oil perfectly along in here. They're nice, tucked and safed in, and be able to throw a few other things. And this uses up some valuable storage space in there that otherwise would have been just hollow space. I also fabricated a transmission shift cover and got the transmission shifter boot installed along with the shifter boot for the Atlas transfer case. So that came out real nice. I'll probably have enough room to mount the Premier power welder on top of that is my plan so far. That may change, but that's what I'm thinking right now to mount that. All right, well that pretty much catches us up to what everything that's transpired in the last few weeks, and how, you know, you can have a total plan and then something happens and then boom, everything's being changed on one front. Not everything, but changes on Cheap Scout. And White Scout, like you said, you know, came back with some ideas to strengthen the cage and execute. All right, well, stay tuned, man. Till next time, come back in and we'll see where we're at on both projects, and we'll go from there. Don't forget to like and subscribe.